Chesapeake Kitchen by John Shields. Keep that in mind. And then, Myeshia, I hope you have cards here. I mean, private chef. I mean, what a wonderful chef we have here. Thank you so much. Thank you all. So we're here for Pete, and many of you folks have been here before for Pete. We had an event December 12th. We had an event prior to that. Several state elected officials have endorsed Pete. They can't be here tonight because they're in the state legislature and they cannot be involved in any fundraising for candidates while they're in the legislature. But I'm free to tell you that Pete has been endorsed by Maggie McIntosh, our delegate here in this district, and Luke Clippinger, and Pat Young. And so they've all endorsed Pete.
And Byron McFarland.
And Byron McFarland, the Register of Wills in Howard County, has endorsed Pete as well. More recently, our Congressman, Anthony Brown, has endorsed Pete, and he's now, I think, the National Co-Campaign Director. Yeah, and then State Senator Will Smith has endorsed Pete. And Smith could not be here tonight either because, again, of the prohibition on fundraising. But we have wonderful local leaders who have endorsed Pete. From the very beginning of the campaign, they've been very supportive. And let me just turn it over. I don't know who wants to go first. Okay, let's let County Executive Don Mohler.
It is an honor to come tonight and have the opportunity to speak on behalf of Mayor Pete Buttigieg. I don't think it's an exaggeration at all. When I look around this room, I look at the faces in this room, I'm pretty sure you agree with me. This November 3rd, 2020 will be the most important election in our lifetime. It will determine the future of our nation for decades. We cannot blow this. That's how important this is. When I came to the decision to get behind Mayor Pete, I had that simple thought in my mind that people across this nation are having today. And a bit of good news, in case your working audience didn't see it, as we pull in today, Mayor Pete is now even in New Hampshire. If you look at trend lines, Mayor Pete's trend line is like that. The other candidates are like this. Mayor Pete's going to have a rousing victory that hope will be decided before several days when they vote on Tuesday and not next Friday or Saturday like we did in Iowa. But one simple rule. Who do I think can stand on that stage and go toe-to-toe with the current occupant of 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue? The most corrupt, immoral, mean-spirited individual to ever hold public office. It has to stop. Wow. It has to stop. And the way we stop it, I walked in and I was struck, and I thought, there it is. There it is. And I picked up that button. Make America kind again. I started to write about a year ago in a blog that I needed to believe, and I'm going to believe this up until November 3rd, that at its core, America is good and decent. Donald Trump has tapped into an ugly underbelly, but at its core, we're good and decent people. And when you put Mayor Pete, this military veteran, this loving husband, this incredibly bright and articulate young man that speaks 6 languages up against a man who brags that he's never read a book. And they have to draw stickmen to try to explain to him where the countries of the world are. I think that debate is a mismatch. The other thing is that I think, I was telling my wife as we got ready to leave tonight, I'll probably look around, I'm probably pretty much the oldest guy here. I'm old enough to remember 1960. And to some of you, this is going to sound crazy. But in 1960, I was a 10-year-old student at St. Mark's Catholic School in Catonsville. And the thought that a Catholic would be elected President of the United States, I see some heads nodding, so there are some people here almost as old as I am, did not compute. It did not compute. Al Smith had tried once upon a time, it ended badly. You were never going to elect a Catholic in the United States of America. But then there was this dashing senator from Massachusetts who got on the debate stage with Richard Nixon. And the rest, as they say, is history. That was a compelling moment and a life-changing moment for me as a young boy. I fast forward to 2000, really a couple of moments. In the, I want to say the 2004 convention, there was this young state legislator speaking at the Democratic convention. And I'm in our family room, and I'm reading a book. And I hear this guy with a funny name. You've never seen, tall, skinny guy, big ears, and a funny name. And so I had to put my book down. 2 or 3 minutes into the speech, I call a friend, and I said, look, I don't have a clue who this guy is. You need to turn on the TV if you're not watching this. A few years later, that same guy electrifies people of Iowa at a Jefferson Jackson dinner when he gives the famous, I'm not running to be the president of the blue states. I'm not running to be the president of the red states. I'm running to be the president of the United States. Fast forward 2008, Barack Hussein Obama walks out to Grant Park to hundreds of thousands in Chicago and becomes the president of the United States. So now again, here we are in 2020, and the thought that a 38-year-old mayor from South Bend, Indiana, in a loving relationship, openly gay, is running for president. People will say, not going to happen. It's not where we are. I come back to point one. I believe we're good and decent people. And I believe just as it happened in 1960, and just as it happened in 2008, that in 2020, we're going to make history. We're going to make a statement about being a good and decent nation. We're going to make a statement about who we are as the American people. And we're going to show again, as my wife always says, call me crazy, but I like smart. And if we want a president that is smart, we want a president who understands complex solutions require, complex problems require complex solutions, not simplistic tweets in the middle of the night. If I never see another tweet from the White House, it will be fine with me. And the last point is if you remember back, and then I'll turn it over to Tom. I always remember, because I think there's a lesson here. You can go all the way down Pete's policies, whether it's the Douglas plan for investing in our communities and making a difference in our inner cities and changing the lives of African Americans all across the country, whether it's talking about how we're going to treat the environment, whether we really address climate change, how we're going to have real relationships with our allies. You can do all that. But I remember also going back to the Obama campaign, and I remember Sarah Palin mocking the president as a community organizer. He's a community organizer. They don't know anything. They can't say. Well, guess what, Sarah? He organized rings around you and had volunteers and precinct captains and phone banks all across this nation. I will say to you that a year ago, nobody knew who Pete Buttigieg was. It was he and 2 or 3 staffers in some hotel room, and everybody thought, what, America, what are you talking about? He had a precinct captain in Iowa in 1,700, 100% of the precincts. He was able to organize. He knows how to run things. We've had a president that's destroyed the government broken it down. I want somebody in there who knows how to put Humpty Dumpty back together again. And I'm confident that that's Mayor
You know, it's always fun to follow Don Mohler. So before Don Mohler was county executive, he was chief of staff for, the late county executive Kevin Cabinets, chief of staff for county executive Jim Smith, and then before they was like director of communications. And so Don and I have been friends for many, many years. I think sometimes I actually talk to Don more than I talk to Heather at home. And, so we talk a lot, and Don's been a great friend, a great advisor, a great mentor, and it's just proud to stand together with Don and stand together with all of us supporting Mayor Pete for president. A little background on myself real quick is I'm generally a centrist. I've been elected 3 times now. The first election I got 55% in the general. The second election I got 61%. The third election, just recently, got 68%.
Woo!
And so,
in a tough district. I have to comment on in a tough district.
In a tough district, and a district, every time I learn when you're elected, you got to make decisions. And we make decisions, you don't always make friends with everyone. And so I'm proud that over the last 3 elections, I went from 55 to 61 to 68, trying to capture not only Democrats, but also trying to capture independents, and also try to win over Republicans as well. Because I think being an elected official, you are supposed to represent everyone. And so when I look at somebody like Mayor Pete, I see somebody that wants to try to reach out and appeal to everyone. I'm also politically, I tend to be fairly socially progressive, and I tend to be a little fiscally conservative. That's sort of who I am, and I think that's a lot of people generally to be that. And I think that Mayor Pete's not trying to promise the whole world to everyone. He wants to do a lot of really good, but he also understands that we have to pay for these things. We have to be responsible. Because when you have a national debt of $23 trillion, and you have a deficit that's $1 trillion a year, eventually people are going to have to pay for that. So Mayor Pete, unlike other candidates, isn't promising everything. He believes, for example, college should be affordable, and college should be actually free for people that really can't afford it. But for people that maybe do very well, maybe they should pay their fair share. He also believes we might have to raise taxes and revenues, because after all, we have to pay for these things, and we want these things. So Mayor Pete has always been very impressive to me, because I find him, the number one thing I think I find him, and this is why I really, really support him, is because of one thing. It's called decency. I really think right now, this country is missing fundamental decency. I will give you a personal story. I probably text Don 5 times a day, poor guy. But today, I was texting Don because somebody, let's just say somebody close in my family, put a Facebook post online today, literally saying that if you agree that Nancy Pelosi and Adam Schiff should be arrested and tried for treason, please share this post. I kid you not, this was a member of my family. And this post, by the way, was shared by other people as well, so it wasn't just a member of my family. And so now a member of my family and I are now unfriending each other on Facebook. and that's uncomfortable for me. But if we really think about why that's happening now, why that's happening is because we have somebody in the White House. The number one thing that this person likes to do is divide and to feed hate and to feed anger and to make people fight each other. That's what the person in the White House does, unfortunately, right now. To me, Mayor Pete, if you want to get a contrast to who's in the White House right now, you put Mayor Pete and the person in the White House, you put them up on stage together, and I think people are going to really notice the difference. And at some point, I hope it's before the next election, I really, really hope that we have the McCarthy moment where, McCarthy's going after everybody, and then one person stood up and said, "Sir, have you no decency? Sir, have you had no decency?" And at that very moment, the whole country started changing. Now, I really hope that happens before the election, but I think that it's incumbent upon all of us to continue to resist. Continue to resist, do not surrender this fight. Keep pushing, and Mayor Pete is going to take us home. So Mayor Pete for president. Thank you so much.